Hi, I'm Tom Ritchie and welcome to Neighborhoods, brought to you by OMAC Mortgages. So, inevitably, purchasing a house is going to be the largest investment that you're going to make. And how can you protect that investment? We'll find out right when we return. Welcome back to Neighborhoods. So today I'm joined by Paul Vandervoort of Service First Home Inspections. Paul, how you doing?
Great. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
So for those just tuning in, we are going to be discussing home inspections today. And Paul, how long have you been in the business?
Been in the business or in the trade for 27 years and in the home inspection business for 8 years.
Okay, so explain some of the, I'm not going to say certifications because we've talked about this before. There's a difference between certified in trades and then certification as a home inspector, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so what's the difference?
In the trade, you actually have a government license. And in the home inspection business, you can take courses and get qualified that way, but there is no actual ticket like there is in the trade.
Okay, so the actual home inspection is just a course. It's not necessarily, experience is what's going to play the biggest role in this, correct?
Correct. There's multiple courses out there to take, and I've taken them all. But like I said, in the trade, it's a licensed event by the government, and home inspections haven't got there to that point yet.
Okay, so what is the actual importance? You know, before we went to a little break there, I mentioned it's the biggest investment you're going to make. So how can you protect that investment? I would think with a home inspection, right?
Correct.
But what is the actual importance of it?
To make sure you know what you're buying, to make sure that there's no surprises once you take possession of the home. Most people, unfortunately, are mortgaged to the max. So when they buy a property, the last thing they need is a surprise of, oh, all of a sudden I need a new roof. That's going to cost me, you know, $4,000 or $5,000, and they just can't afford it.
Right. But it's not just I mean, you dig a lot deeper than, you know, anyone can go and look at a roof and kind of guess, well, it either needs one or it doesn't need one.
Correct.
But you dig in a lot deeper than that.
Yes.
Right.
What I do, I get right inside things. I go inside the attics, inside the crawl spaces. I get down where nobody else wants to go when they're looking at a home. When people are buying a home, they only see the good because they're very excited about their new purchase.
Right.
So when I go in with an open mind, you know, and I try to find the wrong in the home.
Okay. So is there such a thing as a perfect home?
No.
even a new home? Because I wanted to ask you about this. A lot of people, some of my clients even have said, oh, it's a new home or it's 2 years old. There's no reason I need to do a home inspection. What are your thoughts on that?
Every home needs a home inspection. You just don't know where the builder's from or the quality of the builder. And they like to take shortcuts sometimes. So sometimes you'll see, let's say I did a new home the other day, and the cold cellar door was not a insulated door. It was just a wood panel door. So, you know, the builder saved himself a couple $100 by just putting on a normal plywood door.
Okay, and the importance of obviously having an insulated door is?
It's a cold room. It's meant to be cold. So in the wintertime, you don't want all that cold coming from your cold room into your family room.
Okay, so as far as code, it was fine, but the builder's just trying to save a little bit of money. And I'm sure that's not the only shortcut some of the builders take.
That's right. You know, you just got to be careful. There's corners, you know, they're in business to make money themselves, right? So there is corners that get cut, so you just got to have an open eye and look for those things.
Okay. And other than yourself, how do you find a good home inspector? How do you know that you're spending your money wisely?
The best is word of mouth. Word of mouth will sell over any advertisement. You want to make sure that they've been at least in the trade or something along the lines of in the home industry.
Okay.
And that's what I would start with looking at.
Right. So obviously word of mouth is, you know, asking friends, family, that sort of thing.
That's right. Or real estate agents or mortgage brokers, that they know who's in the business and who does a good job.
Okay. And how long, on average, is a home inspection?
Anywhere from, I guess the shortest would be 2.5 hours up to 4 or 5 hours.
Wow.
But I would say the average is around 3.5 hours. Okay.
So I don't want to get into what's inspected because we're going to join you on site for an actual inspection. Now we're not going to do the whole thing.
Correct.
But we're going to go through some of the things that you do check. And what would you say is the average cost for a home inspection these days?
Right around $350.
Okay. Now does it vary depending on if it's a newer house, older house, big house, small house?
To a point, but for the most, you're looking at the same thing, whether it's a small home or a large home. So the cost doesn't vary too much that way.
Okay, so I made a quick note here. There's grow ops out there.
Correct.
Have you ever been in a house that has had a grow op?
Yes, I have.
You have. And did the realtor or the client know that there was one until you discovered that?
The realtor had an idea that there was one in the home at one point, and then I just clarified it for her.
But what are the risks? I mean, there's a lot of legal grow ops these days, but what are the risks of a home with that has had a grow op in it?
The main thing would be mold, because there's high humidity in grow op homes, so the main thing is mold that I look for. The next thing would be hydro, because they all fool with the hydro, and none of them are electricians when they're working with the hydro.
So it's a do-it-yourself, but in the black market. Okay, yes. So Paul, just one second. When we return, we're actually going to join Paul on location with a home inspection while you're doing a home inspection, and you're going to point out some of the things that we need to look for.
For sure.
We'll see you soon.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying this episode of Neighborhoods, but I do invite you to check out our Facebook page where you can get information on past and future episodes, but not only that, you could win some great prizes from our sponsors like the Woodstock Fitness and Racket Club. Stay tuned right here on Rogers TV.
Okay, so here we are on location at an actual home inspection with Paul. And Paul, what is it the first thing that you look for when you start your home inspection?
I normally start looking at the roof, and from there I check the surroundings of the house, the decks, the porches, things along those lines.
Right. But you actually show up on any of my experiences with you, you show up ahead of time and you've got the roof done, that sort of thing, so the homeowner or home buyer isn't waiting around. Is that correct?
Yes, I like to always show up at least a half hour early, get up on the roof. That way the client doesn't have to wait outside in the pouring rain or the snow, whatever's happening that day. So.
Right, and it's actually nice because we're here and it is, well, it's not quite sunny, but it's not cold. Some of your home inspections happen in the dead of winter and snow, right?
Yes, which makes it quite challenging sometimes, especially when you got a foot of snow on the roof to make sure the roof is still in good shape and whatnot, or in the pouring rain.
Okay, so let's head in now with Paul and take a look at what he actually inspects, just in case you're silly enough not to hire a home inspector. Okay, so here we are, we're inside the house now with Paul. Paul, what's the first thing that you start with usually when you come into the house?
Normally one of the first things I start is with the kitchen. I go through the cupboards, go through the plumbing, the stove, the fridge, make sure everything's in good working order. Here on this home, I noticed right away that there's galvanized piping feeding the kitchen sink. You never want galvanized piping in a home. Galvanized rusts from the inside out, so your dimension inside the pipe gets smaller and smaller, and you don't want that. You lose water pressure, and plus it doesn't taste good. So one of the other things I always check is the sinks. I fill them up, make sure they drain properly, make sure that they're trapped underneath the sink properly, and that each sink has its own vent.
Okay, so obviously, Paul, we don't have enough time to do an entire home inspection, but some of the things that you look for in electrical are what?
Especially by a kitchen sink, anytime you're near water, I check each outlet. I make sure that the polarity's proper. I make sure they're grounded. In the older homes, you won't find that they're GFIs, but in all the new homes, anything after 2007 has to be a GFI now.
Okay, so what are we actually looking at here? I mean, when you're going around with these testers, what is this telling you?
It's telling me that the polarity is correct. It's also telling me that the receptacle has been grounded and that it's in good working order.
Okay, so we're good here?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Okay, Paul, so in the kitchen you mentioned the GFI, and we've actually found one here in the bathroom. So explain how it works, what it is, that sort of thing.
What I found here in the bathroom, as soon as I plugged it in, I realized we didn't have a ground because one of my lights are not lit up. I also found out when I hit my button here, it causes a dead short. And when I do that, that should trip the receptacle. And in this case, it's not, because the receptacle is not grounded properly. So this needs to be fixed.
Okay, so this isn't safe. If I've got my hair dryer plugged in here and for some reason a sink full of water and drop it in, am I going to get electrocuted?
Correct.
Okay, so we don't want to do that then.
You don't want to do that. You always want to make sure all your receptacles are in good working order and wired correctly. Okay. Another one of the main things I look at in a bathroom is the ventilation system. You always want to have a bathroom fan in any bathroom, whether it's a 2-piece or a 4-piece. The main thing is that it's vented to the outside properly with insulated pipe. If it's not, what happens, you can get mold growing in your attic if they vent in your attic and not to the outside. So it's something I check for on every home inspection.
Okay, Paul, so we're at the electrical panel. What are you seeing here?
The first thing I do is see what amperage it is, and this panel here is 100 amp service, which is great. It's breakers, not fuses, and there's lots of extra room. What I don't like is there's a couple filler panels here missing, and you never want that, because if you had one of your kids come down here, they could stick their finger in there and touch the main bus, which would give them an electrical shock.
So this panel, the way it sits right now, is technically not very safe.
Correct. It needs to have the filler plates in, and once that's in, then it's in great working order.
Okay, but what does this tell you? You actually take the covers off these panels to look at them, make sure they're not overloaded or something, or what is it?
Correct. I take them off, I look inside, make sure that there's no aluminum wiring, I check that no fuses or breakers are doubled up, and just an overall inspection of the wiring, making sure that there's no burns or breaks in the wire.
Okay, well, let's crack it open and see what we have.
Okay, so now that I have it opened up, I'm just inspecting the wires here, making sure that everything's on its own individual breaker, that all the 220s are good, that the GFIs have proper breakers for them as well, and that the panel is actually grounded. The copper wire here, you always want to make sure that your panel is grounded. And this panel, it's a little messy, but overall it's not too bad.
Okay, Paul, so now we're going to look at the furnace, and what are the main things that we should be looking at when you're doing a furnace inspection?
The main thing with a furnace inspection is you want to make sure the person looking at the furnace is a licensed gas fitter. So when you're hiring a home inspector, make sure they are licensed. The second thing I do is I have my carbon monoxide tester here, and I check that there's no carbon monoxide rolling out of this furnace. We want to make sure that the furnace is in good, safe working order. As you can see on this furnace here, it definitely has a couple issues. There's lots of rust. It needs a service, that's for sure. Another thing I look for is the foundations. You always want to make sure they are in great shape. You don't want to see great big cracks or a lot of displacement in your foundation walls. As you can see in this case, this wall is in good shape. There's no signs of water. When you're walking through your home with your real estate agent, it's something you can do yourself. It's easy to see if there's water up against the blocks. You can look at wood that's around the foundation if the water shows any sign, or if the wood shows any signs of water. The last thing you want is water coming in your home, because it causes mold. That's the number one thing it does. It also wrecks all your flooring, your wood, your baseboard, everything. So you definitely want to make sure you have a dry home.
Paul, in the house you're talking about the nice dry foundation. Is this something that's attributing to that?
Yes, the nice thing you always want to make sure is that your water coming down from your downspouts goes into a leader extension and at least runs away from the home 6 feet. You never want the water pouring up against your foundation, because that's when water will seep into your home and cause you some headache. Another thing with this deck is the railing. You can't have a railing that you can climb. All they've used here is some cheap lattice, so any kid can climb that, and while they're climbing it would break and they would fall over the edge. And we have a nice 10-foot fall here, so it could definitely hurt somebody.
Welcome back. I'd like to thank Paul from Service First for taking us on location with a home inspection. But when we come back from break, we're going to be joined by Kevin Cooper of Coops Construction, who's going to show us a little bit about renovations, maybe teach us a little bit. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Neighborhoods, brought to you by OMAC Mortgages. So we've been discussing home inspections, but now we're going to take a little bit of a swing now, and we're going to actually start discussing renovations. And I'm joined by Kevin Cooper of Coops Construction. Kevin, how you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're not live, right? So, you know, one of the things when these guys come on, they're like, is this going to be live? Yeah, it's live. Anyways, so Kevin, how long have you been in the construction business?
18 years.
18 years. So almost as long as Paul, or no longer. How long were you?
27.
27, okay. So
he's a little older.
let's have an arm wrestle, see who's better. Okay, so Kevin, what type of renovations do you do? Because you started off, you're just doing a couple things here and there, but now you'll build a whole house now.
Yeah, we can build a whole house. We do interior, exterior renovations, big, small.
Okay, and what would you say is the most important? So I've got a budget of $10,000.
Kitchen and baths are the biggest.
The biggest.
Biggest
Okay,
return on your investment.
Okay, so now what about curb appeal though?
Curb appeal, you could change your doors and windows if they're not energy efficient. You could change the soffit and facers, colors, shutters.
So
Those
there's a
are all
number of different things that you can do.
landscaping.
Okay, but let me back up a little bit. How do you find a qualified renovator? I'll say renovator, but how do you find someone that's actually qualified?
The best way to find it, like Paul said, word of mouth is the best. You can go to your local lumberyard, hardware store, ask them. Most of them know local contractors that deal with those.
Now,
places.
obviously, when you're doing something though, you're taking permits out, right?
Yes,
now you must
exactly.
see it. You must see it quite often, and Paul, I'm sure you see this. The do-it-yourselfer, right? So some of the stuff it looks good on the surface, but it's hiding something, and that's where you probably dig in to find that, right?
Yep, things just not done to code.
Right, and I think during the on locations shot with you, I had mentioned it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that there was an issue with the retaining wall.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but what I want to know, Kevin, is the money being spent on material or labor, or is it both? Like, I've got 10 grand to spend. I want the kitchen done. Now, a large portion of that budget is the actual cabinetry itself.
Is the actual cabinetry, but most times it's usually a 50-50 ratio for material and labor.
Right. So I don't want to spend a lot of time. I mean, you have so much experience, but I want to show, because your work is beautiful. I mean, you do amazing work.
Thank you.
So what I want to just discuss first is this. This is as simple as we were talking curb appeal.
Just a simple front entrance.
Front entrance. Okay, so we're going from something that looks clean, looks decent.
Looks decent.
What did the client here actually want to do? Just completely change it up?
Just completely change it. They want to add a window into their door to actually let light into the front entrance.
Okay.
And they're, again, curb appeal.
Right.
Just changes the whole
and this
outlook
is something,
of the front of the
for
house.
sure. You'd notice that right away.
Right away, you would notice that.
Okay. And what would a project something like this cost, do you think?
This one is approximately $2,000.
Around 2,000, and that's including your door and
material labor.
And that's a beautiful door.
Yeah.
Okay, so another project
Once again,
here.
it's energy efficient.
Right.
So it's going to save on your heat bill,
Sure.
air conditioning bill.
Okay, and now this one here, what are we looking at? So, I mean, it looks like a newer construction area as it is.
Yeah.
But you've gone
here,
right to town on it.
Yeah, this one here was a showroom fireplace. I'm showing just a blank wall, and then we actually turned around and actually put in a fireplace with culture stone mantle above it.
Okay, and so the viewers understand approximately cost again. What would it cost to have something like this done?
Well, between the fireplace and the work around it, you're $5,000.
$5,000, and that's a beautiful showpiece now in the room.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've talked curb appeal, we've talked construction projects, but one of the ones that I mean, it blew my mind. And not that I haven't seen it before, but the producer, even when we were looking at the photos, he said that's not the same house.
It's the same house.
But this one here, I actually had to look at the address because it is the same address.
Yes.
This is night and day difference.
Night and day. I've had a client come to me, said they love their location of their home.
Yeah.
They don't want to move,
Right.
but they need to make it more room.
Okay.
The
okay.
family's grown.
Yeah.
So I suggested that we take their one-story house and turn it into a two-story house.
Okay.
They had a 900 square foot house. We doubled their square footage.
Okay. And in this project, what would they have added? Did they add bedrooms, bath?
Yeah, they've added totally upstairs, 3 bedrooms, bath, ensuite, laundry facility.
Wow, it's quite the project. Now this would almost be.
This is a larger scale project. This
Right.
is like $150,000.
Okay, so this is the almost the price of a small home
Exactly.
in Woodstock. I mean, it might not be the most beautiful home in Woodstock, but $150,000. So you go and do a renovation project. You're obviously, Paul, when you go in, you don't really have to worry too much about any work that Kevin's done.
No, I've been on lots of his job sites. He's actually worked in my own home. Trust the man 100%.
Yeah.
There's contractors out there like Kevin that are great,
Yeah.
but then there's other ones that you got to watch out for, ones from out of town that come in, or ones, working out of the back of their truck type thing.
Okay, so ones that you're not going to be able to find for warranty work
Correct,
later. What
exactly.
is it, the tail light?
Tail light warranty.
Okay. So, but when you go in and you've seen that there's been a major renovation project, are you skeptical ever, or?
I'm not skeptical, but I want to make sure that the permits have been pulled and that it's done to code
Right.
and done by licensed people.
Okay, which Kevin obviously
Correct.
is. And
yeah,
how can,
and all his sub-trades as well.
how can someone find out if a permit, Kevin, you mentioned that you take a permit out whenever
Yes.
you do any of the work. How can someone find out if they're looking to purchase a home, they've seen there's a major renovation, or it could be just even a deck, how can they find out that a permit was actually taken out on that project?
All they got to do is call their local municipality.
That's it. And they'll tell them whether a permit was.
They'll tell them all the details on that particular property.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good to know. So we can probably find that information, and I would imagine it'll be up on the screen now. But it's definitely something that people want to be looking into. Is that
definitely.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Now, just a little bit of advice. We had talked curb appeal already, but how about do-it-yourselfers? Okay, because Home Depot really promotes, you can do it, we can help. Is that how it goes? Something like that. Not everyone can do it. But if you can't do it, please stay away from it. Call someone like Kevin to do it. But what advice do you have for a do-it-yourselfer? They're going to want, let's say they're going to renovate their kitchen, and they're going to take this project on themselves. A little bit of advice.
The best advice I can give is get expert advice.
Okay.
Do not tackle anything unless you're 100% sure you could actually do it. You know the size of the project, and you know what you're getting yourself into.
Okay.
And if you get in there and you find it's just overwhelming, do not hesitate to call a local contractor.
Right.
A qualified one.
And is it more if they've already started a project and you have to come in and fix it?
It usually costs the owner more money because we have to go in there and repair something.
Well, that's a great note to end on. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Home Inspections and, of course, Renovations. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Paul, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
And we'll be right back.
Would you like to be a guest on Neighborhoods? We're looking for people who have bought, sold, or tried selling their house privately. Feel free to contact us.
Thanks so much for joining us on Neighborhoods today. Once again, I'd like to thank my guest, Paul Vandervoort of Service First. Thanks so much for coming in, Paul.
Thank you for
Kevin
having me.
Cooper of Coops Construction. We'll have all the information to contact these guys in case you'd like to contact them. But in the meantime, if you have any questions about this episode or a future episode, or maybe you'd just like to suggest a topic, feel free to shoot me a text. My number's on the screen. We'll see you next time on Neighborhoods.